Any good catfish dinner needs to start with potatoes. This is a Yukon Gold potato. These are my favorite potatoes because they have a thin skin and they don't need to be peeled. I usually just cut away any damaged spots or any spots that don't look good, and I just leave the skin on the rest. The whole interior of the potato is just starch, so if you leave the skin on, you at least get a little bit of nutrients, some fiber, and some vitamins. But I'm just going to dice these up into 1-inch cubes and toss them in a pan with a couple of chunks of butter. It's probably about 4 tablespoons of butter there. And while those are heating up, I'll prepare the catfish meat. These are catfish fillets from catfish that I caught myself, locally harvested. And I'm going to cut these into nuggets using these kitchen shears. I like to use the scissors because then I don't have to get a cutting board dirty. And it's kind of a lot safer than a knife too. I'm just going to cut across these fillets and just make these kind of strip-like shapes. Obviously the size and thickness can vary depending on the size of the fish that you're using. I don't really think it's super necessary to try to get them all uniform size. They will cook at different rates depending on the size, but you can just pull them out of the grease when they're done. And I'm going to take a piece of paper towel and stick it underneath the meat in the bowl, and that'll absorb excess liquid that comes out of the meat as it sits there on the counter while I do the next step. And the butter in the potatoes is getting all melted. I'm just going to go give those a little mix and get them all coated with butter. Throw that lid on and let those come up to temperature and start cooking. Next, I'm going to make the breading for the catfish. Today I'm using just cornmeal as the base. Sometimes I use a mix of cornmeal and flour, but just cornmeal today. It gives a little bit more crunch. And this is not corn flour. It's a larger grain than corn flour. This is cornmeal. Cornmeal goes in a gallon Ziploc bag, and to that I'm going to add some lemon pepper seasoning. As you can see, I'm not measuring anything here. I'm just adding a good amount of seasoning. One tip about this, be sure to look at the label on your seasoning because some seasonings contain more salt than others. If your seasoning mix has salt as one of the first ingredients in the list, then you probably don't need to add any other salt or anything, and you might want to go a little bit light on it. Next, I'm going to prepare the pan that's going to receive the catfish when it comes out of the grease. This is just a cookie sheet lined with a paper towel, and then I'm also going to turn the oven on 200. These catfish nuggets are going to be cooked in batches, and each batch is going to sit on this cookie sheet in the oven and stay warm while the other batches get fried. I'm using canola oil for this. It works just fine. Use your oil of choice. I know peanut oil is one that a lot of people like to use for frying fish because it has a higher smoke point. Canola oil works just fine for me. Next, I'm going to put the entire bowl of those catfish chunks into the bag with the breading. No need to do them one at a time. I'm just going to put them all in there and just give them a toss. And I'll make sure I get that paper towel out of there. And sometimes laying it on the counter and just kind of pressing on them a little bit will get that cornmeal to stick a little bit better, but just tossing it usually just does the job. And the end result is a very thin cornmeal coating that will crisp up nicely. In the oil they go. I don't usually get a temperature on my oil. I just kind of heat it up until it's nice and shimmery, and then I just go for it. If it's not hot enough, turn up the burner. If it's too hot, turn it down. Small pieces like these usually take about 5 minutes per side. While that first side's cooking, I'm going to go ahead and check on the potatoes. Looks like I'm getting a little bit of good browning on those potatoes. Give them a little stir. And I'm going to add some seasoned salt to these potatoes. And at this point, I'm going to leave the lid off. They've gotten pretty soft, but it's time for them to brown up with the lid off. I've also got some fresh green beans here that are going to boil while the catfish cooks. And after about 5 minutes, we've got a little golden crispiness on one side. I'm going to give them a flip and do the same thing on the other side. And each batch goes in the oven while the next batch cooks. And here's the full spread: fried potatoes, green beans, and those crispy catfish nuggets. And the best way to serve this is right away and with large portions. Lots of everything. Lots of catfish, lots of potatoes, lots of green beans. I mean, if you're going to be eating fried fish, you might as well go all in. As you can see, the meat flakes apart, and it's tender and juicy and flaky, and it's got a thin, crispy coating on it. If you want to see how I caught these catfish, check out the link in the description. Well, I hope you found that useful. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. See you on the next one.